Now, here's another photo again. I think you're in a business. Where are we here?
Oh, this is another shop. This actually was both a restaurant. This one was a restaurant, coffee shop, internet provider. This was again in Kamloops. Wonderful small business owner. It was interesting when I went in to visit the business. She has a little box by her cashier register for people to be able to put in a donation. And she provides a big pot of oatmeal for people in the community every single morning for free. So she, as a small business owner, gives back to the community of Kamloops. She provides a hot breakfast for people who can't afford it or can only give a small donation or a little down on their luck and having a tough time. So she provides a real service to that community. She's very concerned about the impact of the HST on her small business. Again, you know, someone who contributes, who gives back, who is connected to her community, who once again wasn't told by the government that they were going to bring in the HST. So a wonderful business owner, a great store, a great coffee shop, and no support coming. No support coming for her.
And on the topic of business and how the HST will affect business, I know governments around the world are trying to stimulate their economies with consumer, stimulating consumer spending, and this may have the opposite effect.
And it's part of the frustration that I've been expressing. We're just starting to see tentative signs of recovery. We're coming out of one of the toughest recessions we've ever seen in British Columbia, and as we're seeing those tentative signs of recovery, every economist I listen to talks about the fact that consumer confidence is key to economic recovery. Well, the HST discourages consumer confidence. It has the public keeping their money in their pockets. And it also discourages businesses that we need to help grow our economy in British Columbia. One of the areas that the Premier said he wants to increase support for is tourism. Well, when you're bringing in the HST, you're discouraging tourists from coming to our province. When they look around and they find a jurisdiction that isn't bringing in a new tax as of July 1st, that's where they're going to head. The restaurant industry is another example where a service-based industry is really going to be hit by this new tax. Restaurants weren't told by the government. In fact, they asked during the election whether the government was going to bring in the HST, and the government told them they wouldn't, and if they made any tax change, they'd consult businesses. No consultation, and the restaurant industry predicts huge job losses in their business for, again, people having to pay an additional tax now when you go into a restaurant, when you get your coffee and newspaper in the morning. All of those things are going to cost more now and are going to have a negative impact on our economic recovery, just at a time we need to encourage it, just at a time when we need to be hoping that the economy recovers faster than anyone expected, bring those jobs back, help provide for families. The government's only solution is bringing in a tax that's actually going to discourage economic growth.
Well, we have to take a short break. Please stay with us as we continue with the New Democrat HST special on Shaw TV with Carole James. Hello and welcome back to the New Democrat HST special on Shaw TV. We're speaking with Carole James, leader of the New Democrats. Carole, before the break we were talking a little bit about some of the stops you made around the province since the HST was announced, and some of the things you're hearing. I have a couple more photos that you brought with us that I'd like to go through. The next one, I believe, is you on the sidewalk on the street talking to folks.
This was in Courtenay, and anyone who's been to Courtenay knows they have a great main street in Courtenay, and I took the opportunity when I was visiting to walk up and down Main Street and go in and talk to the businesses and talk to folks who were out there. This was two young people who stopped us and asked us what we were doing, and who in fact wanted to talk about the HST. One of the young men had actually just picked up his bike the day before and was expressing the fact that he bought it because he'd heard there was a new tax coming in and it was going to hurt him. He's going to school. It's the last thing that he can do is afford additional costs when he's already trying to cover his tuition and do what's right, which is get a good education and get a good job when he comes out. Good transportation to be able to address climate change, and he's being penalized by the government. So it was, as I said, a great opportunity to talk to people directly about the challenges, and people are passionate. You know, they know that this is a difficult economic time. They understand the need to grow our economy. They don't see the HST as helping that. They know it's going to make their life more difficult, slow down economic growth, and not help small businesses in British Columbia.
Now, one of the things that's a characteristic of Courtenay, much like very many small towns around the province, is that there's a great used clothing store right there. And one of the things that I think not that many people know about is that the HST will hit used clothing. Doesn't that seem to hit the people that, you know, shouldn't be paying more, really?
It's pretty shocking, and I think that's what we find out with the lack of planning and the lack of being upfront with the voters, is that the government didn't tell the public all of the things that would be impacted by the HST. If you buy more than $100 worth of used clothing, which many families do, particularly at September, when you're going back to school and you're getting your kids clothes and perhaps you don't have the resources for new clothes, you're looking at used clothes, you're now going to actually have to pay HST on $100 worth of used clothes. People who can least manage it. They'll also be hit, of course, with school supplies starting in September. Those used to be exempt. They'll now have an additional cost on them as well. So, you know, tough times for families, difficult times for many people who've had their hours cut back or don't have a job right now. They're now going to be hit even harder, the people who can least manage.
Now, the last photo, I was wondering if you could tell us where you are here and what this is all about.
This was a large rally on HST, a large town hall forum that was held by our Burnaby MLAs. They wanted to give a chance for the public to be heard, and I think that's a theme throughout all of this issue on the HST and all of the travel I've done, is that people don't feel listened to by the government. They feel that the BC Liberals are ignoring their voice, and so we've really provided them with that opportunity. Huge turnout. It was a rainy, miserable night that evening, and we weren't sure how many people would come out. More than 100 people came out to that town hall meeting. We did questions and answers, so it wasn't us talking to them, it was us listening to them. And some very, very poignant and thoughtful responses to the HST came forward. Everyone from business owners who stood up, seniors who talked about the challenges that they were going to face, as well as families and all the difficulty that families are going to have as well. So very, very important meeting, and as I said, the people really wanted to be heard.
Now, amongst your travel around the province and hearing these voices, you've also been in the legislature and fighting the HST there. Now, I'd like to start this segment playing a clip of Carole James in the legislature on April 19th. This is her responding to the HST legislation that came forward.
I visited a restaurant in Kamloops, had a chance to stop by, had a great dinner. The server came up to me after the dinner and said, "I just want to talk about that bill. Are you guys out there fighting on that bill?" He's a young person who's putting himself through university and is hugely concerned because he thinks the business is going to dry up. And if people do come, there won't be any tips left because the HST is going to add that cost on to restaurant meals. That's what we're fighting this bill for. Those are the people who we're standing up for. That's why this debate matters, Madam Speaker. And that's why I encourage every member in this House to reflect not only on those stories, but their own stories. Their own stories of countless British Columbians who are going to be affected by this bill. As we go through this debate, that's what we should be remembering in this legislature, Madam Speaker. We should be remembering the people in our communities, the small businesses in our communities. That's who we're here elected to represent, and that should be front and center in this debate on HST, those people in our communities. The debate on this bill, Madam Speaker, is about doing right by British Columbians. It's about using the power that's granted to us by the people to pass laws that help them, not hurt them. Our jobs in this legislature should be about giving British Columbians a forward-looking vision for our province, making BC more inclusive, more economically prosperous.
That was Carole James in the legislature on April 19th.